So I'll do a couple, like 2-minute quick intro, and then I'll give the mic to Slobodan. So I will not bore you with the history of the group. We started 6 years ago as a Regulus function service developers, but before we knew it, we started advocating serverless as new agile and the mindset. And so nowadays we are using definition that serverless is state of mind and it's focusing on business value, but that sounds fluffy, what the mindset is. So I use Jared Short's definition that if platform has it, you use it. If market has it, you buy it. If you can reconcile the requirements, you do it, and you have to build it, then you own it. And serverless can be applied to any tech stack. So this loose, broad definition help us host different events like this one. So next month, I hope to see you, and I hope that our friend Pankaj Upreti will not be postponing it again. He was busy preparing for the Collision conference. It's his third or fourth startup, and he's using generative AI to help him succeed with that. And then over the last couple of months, I was surprised how a few people know about Knative and Cloud Run. So I'm bringing up the old topic that we covered like in 2019, Cloud Run, and I was lucky to connect with Vitz, author of another book about Cloud Run and Google Developer Advocate. So we penciled this week in, so stay tuned. I don't know exactly which date he's going to be in. He's again 6 hours ahead of us. It's probably going to be lunch and learn. And last and not least, I want to thank Manning Publications Publishing for being a sponsor. At the end of every meetup, we do a raffle draw for any of their products, including Slobodan's book. And I have to thank him for introducing me to Manning, because it was after I met him that I learned how to get free books for nonprofit events, and they're still doing that. If you are not lucky to win the book, you can always use this Toronto 24 coupon at this weird link, or scan the barcode to get the discounted products they have. And now, Slobodan, thank you. I'll be honored to have you here. I learned tons from your serverless applications with Node.js book, and I'm excited to learn what you're going to share with us today. So please take it away.
That book is a bit outdated, so
I know.
If people can choose any other book, I would suggest like picking some other book, because like this was written like 6 years ago and many things changed in the meantime. Anyway, I'll share my screen.
Thank you.
If that's okay.
It is.
Just a second. So it's a bit different to do these kind of presentations online, because I don't see you right now. I see just like the slides, so I really hope nothing will break. So it's weird to ask this question when I don't see you, but have you ever interacted with a multi-turn conversational model trained through extensive transformer architectures for dynamic user engagement? It's like very weird question, right? For me, it's like whenever I try to read something about AI, most of the articles feel like that. And the same question can be asked like in a more simple way, like basically, have you ever used ChatGPT? I don't see your faces right now, but I'm pretty sure that most of you at least tried some LLM like ChatGPT, most probably, but maybe some of you played with, oh, actually we saw that some of you played with Claude and hopefully with some other models. So yeah, that's much easier to understand. But basically, when you're new to LLMs and AI, you hear a lot of new things like foundational models, vector databases, prompts, zero-shot or few-shot learning, fine-tuning, contexts, RAG, even hallucinations, and many different things. So my goal today is to discuss like building production-ready applications with LLMs. I'll talk a bit more about AWS because I know AWS really well, and but we'll mention other models too. And I'll try to like avoid these confusing slang or try to explain it. So let's start with large language models. How do they work? Is that a magic? Because it feels like magic when you try it for the first time. But basically, like, it's not really a magic. It depends on the context. So if I say, if I ask ChatGPT to continue this sentence, there's a There's a big chance that it will say something like, if I say I'm speaking at, it will try to say something like a business conference or a tech meetup or a community forum or something like that. It's definitely less likely to say a space market, a farmer's market or Martian picnic or something like that. But if I play with my prompt a bit and give it another context, so if I say, hey, you're a playful, chatty cartoon character called Space Bunny selling sandwiches on Mars, blah, 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 and continue the same sentence, the results will be different. For example, there's no chance it will say a business conference now. There's less chance it will say community forum, but there's more chance it will say something like a space farmers market or Martian picnic or something like that. And this thing is because of tokens. And tokens are basically words or parts of the words that LLMs are using to understand like these and to continue these sentences and answer our requests. So there are a few ways to test these tokens and things like these. Even OpenAI has something called Tokenizer. There's a link down there. I'll share my slides after a presentation on meetup.com group. But basically, if you type any kind of sentence, you'll see that you, for example, for this one, use 10 tokens, which is basically like each word or word and a space or just a dot or part of the word and things like these. And these tokens are the way LLM is trying to understand the world, because computers are not that good like in understanding plain text. It transfers that to some numbers and then tries to like find the closest other numbers that matches this context, but we'll explain that a bit later. So this thing is called prompts. I see that there's one message in the chat, but I can't really see it right now. So feel free to write questions in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them after the presentation. So what are prompts? Prompts are basically just instructions. And with prompts, you tell LLM what you want, and LLM tries to reply based on its training. And basically, the more details and the better explanation means better answer. The more details doesn't always mean like the longer prompt or instructions, but the more precise details, there's a higher chance you'll get a better answer. If you're working with other people in organizations, you can try the same thing. It works even with people. Like if you give someone like clear instructions, there's a higher chance you'll get like that task done. But yeah, that's the only way to work with LLMs right now. So LLMs will always answer your question unless they completely break or something like that. But if they work, they'll generate text because that's what they do. They're large language models. But of course, not all the answers are always based on truth. Sometimes it will just answer some random things if you ask it some really random question. But before we continue, let me introduce myself. I'm Slobodan Stojanovic. I'm CTO and co-founder of a company called Vacation Tracker, which is basically a leave tracking application that helps people to manage PTOs and other things in their other leaves in their companies. We use AI, of course, for many things, not just for this company, but we do AI R&D for a long time now. I co-authored serverless applications with Node.js book 6 years ago with my friend Alexander Simovic. I'm AWS serverless hero, and I'm also organizing JavaScript and a few other meetups here in Belgrade, Serbia, which is in Europe. So let's go to more interesting things, which is basically models. So prompts are instructions, but where do you put these instructions? Well, there are different LLMs, like types of LLMs that can answer to your instructions. And basically, types of these LLMs are called models. There are different like creators of these models, and I'm pretty sure most of you know this logo. Oops, not this one. I guess this one is a bit better. So this is OpenAI. Basically the I think the number one in AI market today. And the company that basically made these LLMs popular. So when we talk about OpenAI, they have like multiple models, but right now their best model is GPT-4o, which is actually their newest model is GPT-4o, and they tell us that it's the best one. It's definitely much faster than GPT-4, and it's an amazing technology, definitely. It's not really expensive. You can, of course, use it through ChatGPT application and ask it whatever you want, but we'll focus more on API access and something you can use to build your own application. So if you want to use the GPT-4o model, it costs you like $5 for 1 million tokens that you send to LLM, and then additional $15 for each million tokens that LLMs return to you. As we saw, tokens are something similar to words, but because dot is a token, all special characters are tokens and things like these. 1 million tokens is equal roughly to 750,000 words. So basically, it's like a bit less words than these 1 million tokens, but it's like I think like 4 to 5 letters. No, it's like sorry, it's roughly like 75 words equals 100 tokens. So quality of GPT-4o model that you can integrate with your application is ChatGPT level. I can't say it's the same thing. They use the same model, but it always depends on the instructions that you give to that model. So there's a high chance that you'll get slightly better answers inside ChatGPT application than in your from the model through the API, because you don't have the same instructions that they use under the hood, because it's not just what you type to ChatGPT that is sent to GPT 4.0 model. They basically wrap that into some of their own prompts and things like this. So that's why I say ChatGPT level. It's a similar level, but it really depends on many different things. So we're mentioning this GPT thing over and over again, and GPT is basically a generative pre-trained transformer, which again sounds like a magic, but it's not really. It's there are really nice explanations. I don't have enough time to go through that in this presentation, but there are nice explanations on the internet that tries to explain this. Of course, it's not easy to build this thing. It's far from it, but it's not that hard to understand, like all the layers that are like included into building a GPT, basically. So ChatGPT often tells, actually OpenAI often tells us about something called multimodal models, which again sounds like a magic, but it's not really. Because the normal models are not multimodal, which means like you can send them text and they can reply with text. But with multimodal, it means that you can use other types of input and get other types of output. For example, you can upload Excel file and write some text and then get some other text as a reply, or even you can send a voice message and then get an image as a reply and things like this. So multimodal is basically like, instead of using just text to interact with the large language model, you can use like multiple different ways to interact, and it can generate multiple different results like images or text and things like this. So besides OpenAI and its ChatGPT model and GPT-4 model, probably the second most popular model is called Claude. It's by a company called Anthropic, and Claude is on version 3 right now. And Claude 3 offers 3 different models. Opus, which is the best model, like the most expensive, and uh, the quality of replies is the best. Then Sonnet, which is somewhere in between, which changed like a few days ago a bit, and Haiku, which is the cheapest and the fastest model, but again, it's like a bit more limited than the other two. So of course, like the measurement of all the models today is like ChatGPT-4 level. Opus is at GPT-4 level at the moment, which means that you can expect similar quality of answers than GPT-4. There are different like types of tests that are trying to evaluate these models, but if you're using it every day, it will feel similar to ChatGPT-4. Claude released Sonnet 3.5 a few days ago, and I just tried it this morning, and it's really awesome because it's cheaper than Opus, and the quality is really amazing, at least for things that I played with. And right now we're building onboarding component for Vacation Tracker that will help our customers to set up the system a bit faster at the beginning by basically talking to our application. And subjective feeling is that Sonnet 3.5 model is way better than Sonnet 3 model, which we used before that for that onboarding experiment. For the price, it depends. Like for example, Opus is quite expensive. It costs you $15 for input and $75 for output, which means that you can use it for some things, but it's probably not like viable to use it for everything. Of course, if you want to use like Sonnet 3.5, it's much cheaper. It's on the same level as ChatGPT 4.0 model. And Haiku is really cheap. It costs 25 cents for 4 million tokens that you send to it, and costs just like 1.25 cents for tokens that LLM sends back to you, basically for all the generated answers. So these are the two most popular models. Besides them, there's of course Google. We all expected a lot from Google and because Google was the first in AI race for a long time, and actually like ChatGPT is using and many others are using their papers, but we saw how everything ended up with Google. They finally released Gemini, and actually it was Bard first and then Gemini, and there was a lot of problems with this. This was just one example. Other probably worse example is with search, because they introduced like AI powered search, which like gives some weird results in some probably small number for some small number of queries, but still it's like as I said, like we all had high hopes for Google, but it delivered like good results, but not really perfect results. So Gemini model, Gemini Ultra model is actually impressive because it has a context of 1 million tokens. So what's context? It's basically like LLMs can store specific number of words or tokens in its memory. If you try to put more things there, it will forget the first part of the text that you put to it. So just for a scale, like early ChatGPT 3.5 and 4 models had like I think 8,000 to 32,000 tokens context. Then Claude introduced like huge 200,000 tokens context, which means you can put like whole books there. And then Google came up with impressive like 1 million context, which means you can store a lot of data there. Of course, if you put like 1 million tokens inside the context, there are some consequences that some of the results are like there's a small chance that sometimes it will not be able to answer like to all questions related to that context, but result seems like really good for most of the use cases. So for pricing, it's a bit hard for Gemini to even find Gemini in Google. There are so many ways to try Gemini, but it's like it really depends which model do you want to use and things like these. For Gemini Ultra, the cost is like $7 for 1 million tokens that you send to it, and then additional $21 for 1 million tokens that it generates. Of course, for these prices, you don't pay like $7 if you're generating just 3 tokens, but basically you're paying per token. But it's like it's much easier to show it like this than to divide 7 with 1 million, because there will be a lot of leading zeros. All these models are closed models, which means like we don't know anything about them. Well, we saw some things about their architecture and things like these, but they're really close. But there are some open source models on the market. And I guess the first impressive open source model was by a company actually called Mistral. I think the company is also called Mistral, and they also have like a model called Mixtral, which is basically a mixture of experts. We'll discuss that in a second. So as I said, like this was the first wow open source model, because before that these open source models were like more or less useless. Mistral is not just open source company. They also have commercial models like Mistral Large that you can use through different platforms. We'll see that a bit later. And of course, these models, some of these models are open source, but if you want a hosted version, you still can pay for that. For example, you can use Mistral and Mixtral through Amazon, and we'll see that a bit later. But as you can see, prices for these models are much lower because they're open source. So for 1 million input tokens, so 1 million tokens sent to Mixtral 8x7b, which I'll explain soon, costs only 45 cents, and the reply is like 70 cents per 1 million tokens. It's a bit more expensive for this closed source model, which is a bit better, but still it's like $8. That's more like in the range with Claude and others. So I mentioned mixture of experts. That's this like I mentioned 8 times 7b. So what's mixture of experts? It seems that like there's a limited things we can. So innovations with LLMs itself are of course like still on a good track, and we're seeing a lot of amazing things. But it seems that like it's much harder to make big models that are performing much faster and better. So people came up with another impressive concept, which is basically instead of one LLM, you have multiple LLMs that are maybe not that big, but they are experts in specific things. So instead of like sending a text directly to one LLM and getting a reply, under the hood, we do something like you send a text to an LLM, and it has some kind of like a gateway or router or something like that. And then it asks like one or multiple experts, like specific LLMs focused on specific like problems and things like these to get answers. And then again, it like summarize all these like answers to one reply that you get at the end, which is quite impressive because it's like instead of having huge LLMs, you can have like one that is an expert for writing, another that is an expert for like summarizing and whatever. Or even more specific, like we'll see agents a bit, they work quite similarly. Facebook, actually Meta, entered the competition with the open source models, and they kind of recently, like a few months ago, they released Meta Llama 3 model. There was, of course, Llama 1 and Llama 2, which were okay, but Llama 3 is really, really good. It's a really fast model, and it's open source. If you take a look at the license and everything, there was some issues with open source Llama because, of course, they didn't open source everything, but it's definitely more transparent than closed source models. Llama is not multimodal yet, but it's very, very good for specific use cases, of course, and it's really fast. So if you need speed, there's a big chance that Llama can help you. Multimodal, again, means that actually non-multimodal model means that Llama can receive text and reply with text only. It can generate images and things like this at the moment. Another cool thing about Llama is that it's quite cheap, especially if you go for 8B model. We'll explain that in a second. It's 40 cents for input and 60 cents for million output tokens. It's a bit more expensive if you go with 70B model. And when I say 8B and 70B, it's basically number of parameters. And parameters are basically small bits of memory that help an LLM to decide what to say next. If you see this, it seems that more parameters is better. In most cases, it is, but it really depends on the architecture and things like this, because not all of the parameters are the same. But basically, in a lot of cases, if you have like more parameters, there is a higher chance that LLM will be able to answer like more precisely and things like this. And as you remember, like even for Mixtral, I showed that in one of the previous slides. There are like multiple models you can use there, but they have something like 8 times 7B or something like that, which means like they have like a mixture of 8 experts or 8 models that have 7 billion parameters each. And they have like 8 times 20, 22B or something like that for a bit better model. So these are some of the models. Of course, there are many more on the market. You can go like and search for them, but it's like, I think if you want to play with LLMs, this is everything you need at the moment. And the next question that I should probably try to answer is, how can you use these models today? Well, of course, you can go to like ChatGPT, Claude.ai and things like this and use them directly there. But if you want to build an application with these models, there are other ways to do that, especially if you're building an application inside like a company or something like that. There's a high chance that your company has like some subscriptions already and that you can use some of these models through these subscriptions. So one of the popular ways to use like ChatGPT in organizations is through Microsoft, because you probably know that Microsoft has a deal, an exclusive deal with OpenAI. So OpenAI models are available, of course, via OpenAI API or through Microsoft Azure AI. There are no other options basically for OpenAI. Azure OpenAI has most of the models that OpenAI has. They're integrated in Azure. They have the same pricing, but basically you pay that with your Azure subscription, and OpenAI moved to like prepaid tokens now. So you need to buy credits and then use their service. With Azure, you can pay at the end of the month with the rest of your Azure bill. Another cool thing is that, especially if you're from Europe, because you know GDPR and things like these, you can control the region where these models are deployed, which is not the case with the OpenAI API, because you don't know anything. You basically just hit the same URL and that's it. And another cool thing is that with this, you have Microsoft's terms of conditions and SLA. which means like we don't know, like you can trust or not trust most of these like SLAs and things like these and TOCs. But basically, if you're using Azure, there's a high chance that that you already trust Microsoft with your data. So Azure tells us that Azure OpenAI does not use customer data to retrain models or anything like that. Again, you need to decide if that's enough for you or not, but for compliance and other things, this is more than enough. Another popular way to use these models is Amazon, actually AWS, and they offer a service called Bedrock. At the moment, I think there's actually 30 models now there, but I'm not 100% sure. It's changing from time to time. But basically, Amazon Bedrock is Amazon's generative AI platform. They have other parts of AI platform, but Amazon is really focused on Gen AI now, which is basically LLMs. Amazon hosts foundation models and offers APIs for them. Of course, you can select the region. Foundation models are basically like all these models that we've mentioned, and you can like fine tune them or retrain them with some specific data and things like this. Again, Amazon comes with their own terms and conditions and SLA, and they state like that your training data isn't used to train the base Titan models, which are Amazon models. We'll see that in a second, or distributed to third parties such as Claude and others. So, which models can you use on Bedrock? Basically, for Claude, you can use all the models. Of course, it really depends on the region which you're using, but they announced Claude 3.5 Sonnet model yesterday, which is a new one. You can use Mistral AI, most of their models. You can use all Llama models. You can use Stable Diffusion if you want to generate images and things like these. There are a few other models you can use there, like Cohere. I just tried it initially. I don't know almost anything about it. Jurassic, I really have no idea what's that. It's like I again tried it once at the beginning. The results were not really good for my use cases, so I decided not to use it anymore. And Amazon has its own like model called Titan. And yeah, for me, it's still really useless at the moment. Whatever I tried, it's like it wasn't really good enough for everything. So my decision at the moment is that Amazon is really great for hosting models, but I wouldn't like use Amazon's models at the moment, at least not for my use cases. They're cheap, but useless. If you take a look at their console, you'll see something like this. The left-hand side, you'll see like playgrounds where you can try these models and things like these. They have like other like specific features such as guardrails and things like these. They have knowledge base agents, blah, 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 and many other things. But in models, you can basically see all the models like they give access to and select which ones do you want to get access to and play with them. Not all of these models are available in all regions. You can take a look at their pricing page. They list all different things, prices and regions that models are available to. But if you want to try most of these models, you either want to use US East 1 North Virginia region or US West Oregon region because they has most of these models, and they release models in one of these two regions and then expand to some other regions. As I mentioned, they have Playground. It looks similar to any other playground. Basically, you select a model. In this case, I'm using Claude 3 Opus. You can write system prompt on the right side. You can set up some different like settings there, like temperature and other things, which will not dive into right now because we don't have enough time to do that. You can also write your prompt at the middle of the model, and That's it. You can hit enter and get some results, and you can easily test each of these models. Of course, besides like just hosting models, there are a few other features from Bedrock. One is like API access. You have API access, and they finally have like a wrapper in their API that gives you like a common API for most of these models, because they have slightly different APIs. Some support like system prompts, some don't. Some of them have different ways to write the system prompts and things like this. But finally, they have unified API that you can use, and they'll just like transform that under the hood and basically send a request to a different model. They have playgrounds, as I mentioned and showed you. They have something called agents. We'll talk about that soon. Fine-tuning, again, if you want to like add additional training to some of these models, they basically like market Amazon Bedrock as a place where you have foundational models, which means that you can take them and give some additional training to these models, which sounds really simple, but it's not at all. It's hard to get some good results. We'll talk about that a bit later. And of course, they have some like security features, really basic ones at the moment, through these guardrails, mostly like, for example, like if you see specific things in the prompt, like if someone is asking for pricing or something, you just like decline to answer or something like that. And they have knowledge base, which is basically like retrieval augmented generation, which we'll discuss soon. But before that, let's discuss agents a bit. So AI agent seems like a big thing in AI. And well, LLMs are good at responding to, I have a typo here, well-defined and focused tasks. So if you give an LLM really specific instructions, there's a high chance that it will give you like really good like reply. But if you try to write like huge prompt and ask for many different things, there's a huge chance that it will fail and give you just partial result and things like this. So it's definitely much better to take a big task, split it into many smaller tasks, and use the ask LLM to finish all of these subtasks. As you know, it works the same when you're building a product or anything. It's much better to like attack some big problem with many smaller problems. Well, AI agents are a way for us to do that programmatically. So imagine that instead of having just one LLM, that you can have like multiple like prompts or different LLMs or whatever, and some tools that can answer your problem. So for example, let's say you want to get some whatever, you have some instructions and you send that to LLM, and instead of LLM trying to answer immediately to your instructions, it will check if it can like answer if you're asking something really simple. If yes, then it will just generate text for you, and that's it. But if you're asking for something more complex, like let's say you want to research some topic, like let's say you want to research serverless Toronto meetup or something like that, uh, there's probably not enough information in LLM's training to answer all of your questions. So AI agent will basically tell your software, which is basically Node.js, Python, or whatever, that it can't answer, that it needs like to crawl serverless Toronto meetup website and to Google to find some results about it. And then your software basically invokes some tools. LLM can tell you like, I need like browsing tool and search for this URL, and another browsing tool and search for this other URL. So your code basically opens these other functions, which is basically like web browsing or something else, scrapes that website, put the text in some other agent expert, maybe expert for understanding a website or something like that. That expert creates a summary, Maybe you have a QA expert, which is basically another prompt that will get like some instructions and then the reply from scraping agent, and then just answer with like this is good quality or try again. If it needs to try again, it will just like open a browser again, scrape a few more things, and ask like an AI scraping expert to scrape it again with more precise information. And finally, when you have some results, these results will go back to your let's call it like project manager or PR LLM, which now can answer your question, and it will basically generate an answer for you. So basically, it's something similar to a mixture of experts, which you can basically build by yourself. This sounds complicated, and if you don't want to build it yourself, you can use some of the products or tools for that. One of the most popular tools is LangChain, and you can use it with Python or JavaScript at the moment. AutoGPT is quite cool because it allows you to like try to build these models, but in a way that that can like automatically learn more things and expand. And again, most of these things sounds really, really cool until you try them, and then you see that they are limited, but still you can create really impressive things with them, even in their current stage. There are many, many others like AutoGen, Baby AGI, and many, many others. But of course, OpenAI has its own assistants, Bedrock implemented agents, or you can basically build your own simple agent without like too many things. But what I created, the diagram that I showed in the previous slide is basically based on something that we tried to build ourselves just to understand how everything works. So that's about AI agents. We can talk about that for ages, but it's still like an early in their these are early days of AI agents. They are not really useful. They are more like useful as Alexa, but it's like eventually there's a high chance that these agents will be way more useful. So we mentioned many different models, and the way Bedrock works is that the same way basically most of them work is that you share your AI model with many other people. And the question is always like, can I run my own model isolated from everyone else? And of course, the answer is yes. That can give you like a dedicated model that can answer to your questions only. It will be more isolated and things like these. There's one problem with that. For example, for Claude 3 Haiku, which is the smallest and the cheapest one from Claude, here's the cost. So hourly cost is $80. Estimated daily cost is almost $2,000, and estimated monthly cost is like $60,000. And this is like if you commit for 1 month, then you have just one model unit, and you're using like a model that is not super like super impressive. And at the moment, like it's not really a viable option unless you have like really specific use cases and things like these, and your model build is not like a huge one or something like that. These are US dollars, not Canadian dollars, but anyway, it's still like really high cost. Of course, if you don't like Azure and AWS, there are also many other places where you can play with AI models. I'll quickly go through other model platforms. Cloudflare has its own like models. They host open source models. Grok, they also like hosts open source models. This is not like Twitter Grok. It's a different thing. They have something called large language processing units, which they say that are faster than GPUs, and in general, like they have like really fast platform. Google hosts Gemini models, and there are many other platforms and you can even self-host some of the open source models. If you want to play locally, there are ways to do that. You can download something called LM Studio, which is basically an open source tool where you can download different models and play with them. There's Llama, which is again a tool that helps you to run Llama and some other models. You can go to Hugging Face and find ways to run some of these models on your machines and things like these. But LLMs require really strong machines and a lot of memory, so it's not always easy to run them locally. Well, what can you build today with LLMs? I really love this comic by Forrest. He's also actually he was AWS serverless hero, but then he went to Google. But basically, you can create mass for sure. Like it's easy to create mass with AI, but of course there are some things LLMs are really good at. They're really good with text, as you can imagine, because they are called large language models. They can really good summarize text, label, or help you to structure unstructured text. They can generate text. They can personalize or translate some specific text, and many more things. For example, you can use them to uh, personalize emails and translate them to different languages and things like these. And I think LLMs can improve user experience for many products. And I'll quickly show you what one of the things we're using LLMs for. Of course, oops, this is not the only one. As I said, we're using AI for, we do a lot of things with AI today. But sorry, in Vacation Tracker, you can basically use Slack or Microsoft Teams to request leave, but you had to go through some forms and before that types of commands. But right now, instead, you can just write something to our bot, like anything, and bot will send that to some to API gateway, of course, some Lambda function. Then we'll stream these messages through something called Event Bridge, which we use to stream messages. And then that will invoke another Lambda function that will basically talk to LLM. Instead of returning the answer directly from LLM to you, we'll do something called we'll actually check for intent of your message, because we don't just want to allow you to talk directly to LLM. We want to have control in between. So we'll ask LLM to validate the intent. If the intent is requesting leave or anything like that, it will basically send it will notify another Lambda function that will ask LLM to format a specific message and understand your leave request, and then it will answer to you. In practice, it looks something like this. My favorite, you can type, for example, my favorite series just released a new season, I don't know, House of the Dragon or whatever. I can't work today, request a sick day, come up with some cover-up reason, and it came up with sick day, and it says feeling unwell. Of course, we can tweak the prompt a bit, but that was from our production. Of course, it can understand any language, so I tried in Serbian. I said can I take a vacation for the first 2 weeks of July? It understood everything and just pre-filled the form. We always ask user to confirm this before doing anything. And of course, there's another thing you can do, which we tried and looks really impressive, which is basically use emails for everything. So instead of talking to Slack or Teams, you can basically send an email to our application without logging in or anything and request leave. Of course, you need to approve some things. It will not do everything it will ask you to confirm before it requests a leave for you, because we don't want to mess with with someone spoofing emails and things like this. So let's quickly go through prompts, and that's basically it for today. There are simplified versions of prompts. We basically in system prompt do agent intro. We tell Vacation Tracker, we tell LLM who it should pretend it is like vacation tracker assistant, blah, blah, blah. There are some rules there. We have a list of all intents, such as leave requests, that's for requesting leave, such as PTO, sick day, blah, 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 including full day, multiple day, half days, hourly leaves, and there are many other intents. Oops. And then we tell LLM to always reply with JSON with specific types. I think YAML is a bit better than JSON because of streaming, but we don't care about streaming here and parsing also. But anyway, this works. It's able to understand the intent, and that's called prompt engineering, basically. It sounds like magic, but it's not really magic. And there are a few ways you can do, like you can write better prompts. One of the popular thing is zero-shot versus few-shot prompting. In zero-shot prompting, basically, you just write some system prompt, you ask for something, LLM answers. In a few-shot prompting, you basically do the same thing, but instead of just like sending a question, you send like examples, like if I ask, if I say I'm not feeling well today, agent answers with leave request. If I say, can I take Monday off? Again, leave request. If I ask, can I ask for refund? It sends like billing as a reply. And then you finally like send a real question, which is the green one, and it replies with the real answer. If you use this few shot thing, it's more expensive, of course, because you're sending more tokens, but it increases like the precision a lot. So, for example, with Claude Haiku, you get the same quality as like one shot with almost ChatGPT 4 or something like that. Of course, context is a problem because you're not always able to fit everything in a single prompt, and that's where you use RAG or retrieval augmented generation, which is again nothing really special. It's basically like you use you take small piece of, for example, your knowledge base and embed this small piece into your prompt and basically like ask the prompt, like blue thing here is like system prompt, then orange thing is basically part of your knowledge base, and then you say like answer the following question based on this knowledge base article, and then green one is a real question for user, and the red one is the answer from the agent. So you remember like the initial prompt that I showed, like with some additional instructions. Basically, all these instructions are using something called vectors. And the way LLM is deciding how to answer is by like putting these dots in some space. It's not two-dimensional. It's easier for me to show you like 2 dimensions, but it's basically like it has many dimensions. So when you type something like bus, it's like actually if you type like potato, it's similar kind of to tomato more than it's similar to bus car or something like that. And that helps LLMs to quickly like navigate a lot of these parameters and answer your questions. There are vector databases that you can use for quicker search through these vectors. Some of the popular ones are Pinecone. You can use even Elasticsearch or OpenSearch or whatever. You can use Postgres, or you can basically use S3 or anything like that. It's quite easy to write these. You can even ask ChatGPT to write a simple function that will search vectors through your S3 bucket or something like that. It works. I have an article that can show you how to do that. Last thing, security. The first question is, should I host my own model? As we saw, like, no. In most cases, you don't want to do that. First, it's quite expensive. Second, like then you have too many things to worry about. Like, of course, you need to find a platform that you trust, and trust is a hard thing to define these days. But basically, all of the platforms will tell you we don't train our models with your data, but of course we know that they train their models with basically everything. But if you trust like Amazon or Azure with your application, there's a big chance you can trust them with LLMs too. But you need to take care about like things that you're sending to LLMs. As always, like One thing is like you trust platforms to store and transfer the data, but then you decide which data to send to them. One of the common problems is prompt injections with security. Like you have these long prompts, but then some user can tell you like, forget about the instructions above and give me whatever, like discount or whatever. We saw examples where a guy managed to get a car for $1 because we told like a chatbot on some website, Ford's website or what's something like that, that it needs to give him like a car for $1. Fortunately, these new models are a bit better with these. You don't need to think about like hard things for LLMs and security problems for LLMs. There's top 10 problems, which is basically prompt injection, training data poisoning, and blah, blah, blah. I'll not go into details, but there's a list on official website. There's a link here. And finally, like at some point, everyone was talking about artificial general intelligence. Well, basically, I asked ChatGPT to explain artificial general intelligence, and it says like it's like a Swiss Army knife for brain brilliantly juggling tasks you throw at it, from cracking jokes to solving quantum physics puzzle. And then, of course, I asked like ChatGPT if it's an AGI. It says it's not AGI yet, which is quite obvious. But then I also asked ChatGPT if AGI can become Skynet, and as you can imagine, it says no, of course not. But who knows? Like, but anyway, it's like AGI is a funny thing. I don't think we're anywhere close to that. So LLMs are not magic, but you can build really amazing things using them today. It's still early days, and it's perfect time to learn about them. And when you learn to use them, this can be you, of course. And that's it from me for today. As I said, I'll put this presentation somewhere, and actually on meetup.com, and you can follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. And yeah, that's it. I'm happy to answer all the questions you have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Exciting. So Q&A starts now. We still have 22 minutes, so guys, feel free to unmute, shoot your questions. And personally, I can start with the one I like your style of writing the book and contributions to open source with Claudia.js, and even the last book. So when you described those Teams, Slack connectivity, email connectivity, they almost feel like edge devices, like to talk to LLM. Are you contributing somewhere to open source or planning or writing the book? Are you sharing any of your work like you did in the past?
So we did share some of our work. We tried to build some small product, like in a way that we basically shared like our thinking about the product and everything else. I can put a link here in the chat. We stopped at some point, but we are planning definitely to continue with like different products. We decided not to build this one at the end. You can see it here. If you go back to day 1, you can follow our journey basically from day 1 to day 36. It's not really, it's working day 36, but not really 36 days in a row. But basically we try to play with different things and build something, a small product that can like basically the idea was to use your knowledge base to build like small interactive tooltips for your application. You know, these like small like question marks in the application. We wanted to try to create interactive ones where you can ask questions directly on a website. And the experiment was really nice, but in the end we decided that it's like too hard to maintain that and maintain like vacation tracker, which is a product that pays our salaries. So we decided not to continue with that, but basically like the whole journey is documented there, and we'll open source it. And then I'm pretty sure we'll write more and share knowledge more. But yeah, it takes time to write all these things, and it's like there are so many things on the internet now. Most of them are like AI generated, so it's it's hard to find motivation to write more things.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I did follow originally, but it was like my gym membership. I gave up after 7 days. So I did not get this far. Okay. Anybody else with questions or? You can either
Any
put them in the
questions?
chat.
I'll take a look at the chat. So there was a valid question. What's a token? Token is basically it's like LLM is trying to split words into small like subsets that it can be reused like in multiple different sentences. In most cases, like tokens will be the same as words, but sometimes like they can be parts of the complicated like long word, or even like some special characters and things like these. And basically token is representation, text represented as a number somewhere in the, actually as an array of numbers, and then by using like vector search, LLM can put your instruction somewhere in the space and find like the closest potential answer. So when you ask LLM to continue some text or something like that, if you take a text for some from some book or something like that, there's a high chance it will reply with something really similar to the next sentence of that book. But if you ask it to finish something like some weird random number of strings or something like that, it will just hallucinate, because it will try to find the closest vector. And they improved the LLMs a bit, so now it will try to tell you, I don't understand your question, blah blah blah, please, it seems that you're whatever. But basically it's like it's just like converting your words, actually sentences, to small chunks, and then each chunk to each word, all part of the word, to numbers, and then pointing that as a dot somewhere in some space. It sounds really complicated, but it's not that complicated when you try to. I think we did that in that blog that I mentioned. I think it was day 7 or something like that. One of these, like around day 7, was like explanation of tokens and function that can and we also written a small function that can like convert some strings to tokens on your computer and stores and help you search through them and things like these. It's really useful. That token search is really useful for when you search some website. Most of the time you just like search you can do full text search for sure, but then it will try to exactly match some things. But with token search and basically LLM search, actually vector search, it will also try to search synonyms and things like these. For example, like even if you search in Serbian, it can like understand that some other things in other languages are close, like in English or something like that, are close to your question, and it can find the answers like more precisely, especially when you don't ask like a specific question. So that was one of the questions. Feel free to unmute and ask if you have any other question.
While they're collecting courage, I can maybe ask you more. Like most of us engineers, we like to engineer, get excited about getting things to work. But as a business owner, so it sounds like you found a value in use cases for onboarding users, then
Yes.
native English and translation, and then customer support. Any other hotspots where people should focus, not just to have cool stuff, but to create business value?
Well, it's like you can use it for anything where you basically like where you deal with text. It can help you like it's if you ask LLM to do some I don't know, high level business thing or something like that, there's a high chance it will just like give you some random things. But if you ask it some specific things related to languages and translations or understanding, summarization and things like this, there's a high chance it will like give you the correct results all the time. We try to build co-founder with basically with AI. So it's kind of AI co-founder that will build a startup with us. It's still really far away from that, but then there are some cool things you can do. Like a small product that we're just testing and I hope we'll release really soon is a product where you basically enter your competition, and each week it will like monitor your competition for new features, pricing changes and things like these, and basically send you tailored newsletter each week with all important changes, and then basically you can go to their websites or take a look at the screenshots and compare if these changes are meaningful to you. It's really cool for us because we do that manually right now, because you need to do that when you have competition. And there are countless of different things you can build with basically most of the technologies, but also with AI, especially because it's new. So I would just suggest you to as far as I saw, actually some people built some amazing things with it already, but basically you should just try to build things, and you'll fail most of the time, but then sometimes you'll see that there are some really cool use cases. If you're on Twitter, there are almost every week like some breathtaking demos that people are showing. We try to build most of these things like on our own, and it works for a small like demo, and then it fails for many other things, which is cool. But we learned a lot of things, and we will learn what we can do. So
Krish,
yes,
you go next.
sir.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Slobodan. Yeah, thank you so much for the great presentation.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I was curious about like the vacation tracker app that you have, like in terms of a lot of concurrent users. Like, do you have the problem of a lot of requests coming at the same time? And, kind of how do you load
Oh yes,
distribute if at all that happens?
it's like vacation tracker is built as a fully serverless application, and we're using serverless CQRS setup with everything. There's like I have at least few presentations on that. I can send you some of them, but actually it's like just a second
Yeah, but I meant like very specifically
for LLMs.
with respect to LLMs. Yeah, yeah. Because I was building like an app where I was doing more
Yeah,
multimodal stuff,
yeah.
where it was both, I mean, there I was using GPT APIs. So obviously when, even like say 5 users are using the platform at the same time, and because internally I'm calling the LLM a bunch of times, there's more likelihood of timeout. I mean, it's kind of gets resolved once, you keep upping the limits, but I was wondering whether
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
any
of
nice
course, of
ideas
course.
on
But you know
handling.
what? It's like first on we use Bedrock with Cloud right now, so
Mhm.
limits are different there.
Okay.
Second, vacation tracker is not really uh dependent that much on LLM. So most of the functionalities that people are using every day are not really like LLM heavy. We just added LLMs to simplify some things like talking to a bot. We have like a system for retries and everything else, like because you can't like rely on external connections to Slack and Microsoft Teams anyway. So whenever we can't reply, we'll continue doing that like for some time. And that works even for LLMs. And for onboarding, it's basically a separate model that does just onboarding. We don't have that many onboardings at the same time. We have like signups, of course, every day, but it's still in testing and limited to specific number of users. But even if we scale, it will not be like 10 requests per second. I would love to have like 10 signups per second, but we're not at that level at the moment. It's like we have 2,500 paying companies, which is a lot for our startup, but it's like, as you can imagine, it's like not 2,000 signups every week, unfortunately. So yeah, we don't still have that problem with that. We for most of the other things, I really don't know for a big scale. You're probably a better person to answer that. I mostly use them in control and experiments so far and things like these without like I don't know, tens of
Got it.
thousands or hundreds of thousands of concurrent users or anything like that.
Got it. Yeah, makes
But
sense.
if you have that, probably
Yeah.
the thing from Bedrock where you can buy like dedicated instance or something like that
Right.
can be useful. It's
Right.
really
Yeah.
expensive, but
Yeah. Like for GPT-4, my hack is just multiple accounts, and I just load balance between the
did you
4 different
try
agents.
Azure OpenAI? There are still limits,
Yeah,
but
they do
you
have.
can.
Sorry, go
It's
ahead.
like
Yeah.
no, you can use them and ask for higher limits. We managed to increase our limits early on, but of course, Microsoft is not the perfect organization for communication with support and everyone, but it's like at least for Amazon, there are ways to ask for increases in like through their web dashboard easily, and it
Right.
works like quite well. So
Got it. Perfect.
if
Thank
you're
you.
not dependent on ChatGPT, you should take a look at the Bedrock because they have some
Right.
higher limits in some cases. Uh,
There is a question, Osama.
yeah, there's a question for AI agents. There's a lot of hype about agents. However, it seems for the most part, either the tasks they do are too simple and not worth the cost, or it's multimodal agents for complex tasks. But then the cost is super high. There's an issue where agents will be stuck chatting, talking to each other. Any thoughts on that? So my thought on that is that agents are in really early days. Let me just try to find something from Simon Wardley. Simon Wardley is a person that created Wardley Maps. He was part of Ubuntu when Ubuntu became like the cloud Linux system, and he has like a good chart for agents and a few other things. I'm just trying to find.
While you're doing
Okay,
that, definition of agent is quite loose. Like sometimes it
of
involves
course.
thinking, sometimes it's just a workflow, sometimes like a checkbox, like what you did in your prompt, validating, is it related to vacation, is in a way agentic behavior. It's like a workflow.
No,
You
for
don't
sure,
let
for
anything
sure.
in. So
No,
it's broad spectrum.
of course, but it's like I don't think for me agents are more like I'll share my screen so I can show this to everyone. But basically, this image is quite interesting because I'm following Simon for many years now because of serverless and infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, because he was right, because basically he calls this war, but war is basically like a moment where we have like a competition between vendors to see who will win. And at this moment, there was no clear winner for serverless. Now there's a clear winner, which is basically AWS. But like as you can see, agents, intelligent agents, he predicted like again, this can move a bit, but as you can see, like now it's like heating up a bit, and then the real like race for the winner in that case, in his prediction, will be like in like 5 to 10 years, something like that. It might be a bit earlier, but I don't think it will be much earlier than that. It's good to be like positioned really well right now, because then when this starts, you'll be able to use these waves to build amazing things and things like this. But it's still early for AI agents to do like the real groundbreaking work and things like this. And if you take a look at many of these things, he was right for many of these things. Like for example, currency and blockchain. As you can see, it's like it's still Ethereum versus others versus like Bitcoin and things like these, and we kind of have like clear winners there. And yeah, there are many things. Of course, things are changing. These are just predictions based on Wordly maps, but I would definitely suggest like reading about Wordly maps a bit.
Thank you.
So yeah,
Any
agents are
other
not.
questions? Sorry.
No, agents are not really the most useful at the moment, but basically, like, yeah,
Cool.
they might
Thank
be
you.
in the future.
Thank you for bringing up Wardley. I stopped following him. It's good. So maybe like we have a couple more minutes. Any other questions? I have one practical question if nobody else has.
Sure.
You know how when you're working with UIs, there is a thumbs up, thumbs down if you like it. How do you getting feedback from the applications? It's very useful, but the only solution I've seen so far is Langsmith by LangChain, and that involves sending data to them. Is there anything else out there? Anybody playing with LangFuse? Like, what are the solution for tracing end to end?
So we basically built a few things with CloudWatch and a few other things, but Well, I don't really know. We have enough things. Actually, I really think that a few startups will get a lot of VC investments for building like observability tools and security tools for LLMs, the same way they did for like serverless and many other things, Kubernetes and whatever. So it's that moment in time when a lot of startups will get really good VC money, and some of them will create big exits for that. But basically, we'll see more and more tools for that. Right now, there are ways you can basically like build some of these things by yourself. And the thing is that you'll still probably need to use other language models to evaluate your requests and responses and things like these. There are some things I saw like where you can, for example, use 2 or 3 other models to evaluate. Let's say you're using ChatGPT, then you can use, let's say, Mixtral, Llama, and let's say Claude to evaluate this and decide if this is like good or not. But first, that takes like time. Second, that costs money. So it really depends what you're building and how important this is.
Yeah, I think QA will adopt those tools because I'm seeing the traditional QA is confused about testing LLMs. It's not deterministic, so the only way to do it to use other LLM to say, is this really what we're talking
Definitely.
about? So,
Or people, which is more expensive. So yeah, you definitely need to do something like that. And there's a small chance it will return errors even with some improved like logic and things like these. I just think you need monitoring and some kind of alerts for all like bad things so you can react on them. You'll not be able to control everything at the moment.
So we are coming to the end. It's a lunch break for people on Friday, so probably they have to be back in the office. Let me do the survey, and you guys keep asking Slobodan questions if you have.
You can follow me on, ask me anything on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever you want. If you have any other questions that you don't want to ask today, so feel free to reach out to me wherever you want, and I'll be happy to answer.
So I'll be running wheels of names based on the people who did survey. Not too many of you filled in survey, so you have good odds on winning. Anybody else who wants to be in the wheels of name that did not do the survey? I have these names so far. Anybody else?
You can skip me.
I put you. Well, why not? We like money. So anybody else? No. So let's spin. Ta-da. Bill. Congrats. So paste your email address in the chat, and I will connect you with the nice folks from Manning for winning any of their products except bundles. For those of you who did not win, you can scan this barcode or go to this URL and get 45% off any of the products they have. So that's from me. You folks are awfully quiet. Anybody else has questions? We are still on time.
Thanks everyone for spending your lunch break with us today with my presentation. So if you have any other questions or anything, feel free to get in touch with me. And if you're building something cool with AI or serverless or anything else, I would love to hear about that. So feel free to message me on either LinkedIn or Twitter, or yeah. Or if you email like slobodan@vacationtracker.io, that will come to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All the best with the business and
Thank you.
LLM adoption, and everybody has a good weekend.